I figured out that the pharmaceutical model wasn't very good for healing. I jumped into the nutraceutical stuff, the nutraceutical industry. And because I have this pharmaceutical background, I'm able to develop products and formulate products that don't have contraindications for common scripts. And I know those scripts pretty well, the metformins, the a lot of the digestive products, all the PPI stuff, the SSRIs often, things for high blood pressure, medications for sugar imbalances, all that kind of stuff. So we don't really have contraindications with any of those things. SSRIs are a little bit of a tough one, but we've had folks, patients on that stuff, taking basically everything in the line, and it does not cause any issues. Okay, so hold on a minute. I'm just going to get rid of these things on my screen that are annoying me. All right, so I'm going to share a presentation that I did over at Maho that I think is pretty informative. And it is, can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the title of that presentation was Core Ailments, What Doctors Fail, Where Doctors Fail Patients. And it's really, when you take a look at LiverMedic and all the products that we end up making, it's really to address the issues of metabolic syndrome. And when we first started or launched LiverMedic, we did this about 15 or so years ago. And obviously, we're highly focused on fatty liver. So there's about a third to a little bit more than a third now of individuals of Americans that are walking around with fatty liver don't even know it. Okay, so that's a huge percentage. And there's a huge overlap with those individuals and digestive issues. Well, that's because the pathology is your digestive health collapses, and that gives way to lots of other things rolling into the circulatory system, getting caught by the immune system, causing flare ups or triggering autoimmune issues, and then trying as best you can, the body trying to filter that stuff out through the liver. And of course, it's just not possible to keep up with all of those things. So that's the overall pathology. And then, of course, you have all of these other myriad of problems that pop up that are a byproduct of that. So that's more or less the sort of the summary of this. So I'd love to ask the group here, like, I don't know how often you see people with leaky gut and IBS and diverticulitis and all that stuff, and GERD and dysbiosis. Those are kind of they're very all related. But how about things like Hashimoto's? Like people coming in that have thyroid issues. Do you see that a lot?
Yes.
Okay. And would you necessarily, at this point, I know this group is probably very well educated. I ask this of doctors, and they say no. But do you see the connection? Or do you understand the connection between Hashimoto's and gut health? Just a general question. Is that a connection that a lot of people make? Do you think?
I guess I don't know the real definition of Hashimoto's.
Okay. No, I should probably have defined that. So thank you for calling me out on that. So Hashimoto's is essentially where your own immune system attacks your thyroid. It
Okay.
sort of gets confused, goes after the thyroid tissue, breaks it down to the point where your thyroid has to be um, brought back up to speed health-wise, either through iodine supplementation or synthetic.
Okay.
That's typically what ends up happening. So, and I will make the case for this really actually being an extension of poor digestive health.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the connections that doctors just are not getting at this point that you in the store are going to understand. And it's going to make a world of difference to those folks coming through the door that have Hashimoto's. A lot of our patients have Hashimoto's.
Hmm.
So, and of course, they almost all have liver issues and they have digestive issues. So I'm going to connect all of these dots in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this all mix together? What are the dominoes that fall here? So we understand all the drivers: poor diet, antibiotics, stress, pesticides, scripts, things like glyphosate. So they get into the system, they compromise the digestive health. Glyphosate in particular. So glyphosate is the active
Hmm.
in Roundup, and Roundup is and its other derivatives are one of the most. I'd say it's number one on the list of pesticides within the U.S. And this stuff is so bad that out in the Midwest, when we have farmers that call us, they will oftentimes complain of what's called farmer's lung. I don't know if anybody has heard of that term before. Is that sort of familiar? Farmer's lung? Okay.
No,
Okay.
I've never heard of it.
So let me define that for you.
And
So
I live in Kansas, so I know in Iowa.
yeah, so you so you would
I know a
definitely
lot of
know. I'm
farm,
okay. I'm speaking to the
but I have.
experts. That's good. So farmer's lung, and I didn't know this either until I was doing a show on a radio program out there about 10 years or so ago, and the host was telling me about farmer's lung, and then people were calling in complaining about farmer's lung. I was like, all right, well, this is the thing. So farmer's lung is when the farmer goes out and sprays Roundup or glyphosate-based products on the fields. And then they'll go ahead and they'll harvest it and they'll use as a desiccant glyphosate. Now, of course, they're basically in a hazmat suit because this stuff is that toxic. But even in a hazmat suit and taking all the precautions and washing themselves off afterwards and all that, even the minute amounts of glyphosate that get into their system cause all kinds of havoc. And so what we end up doing is we end up giving them hepatibin, which is our liver cleanse product, which goes in and is very effective at clearing out toxins through phase two conjugation. Okay, so that's what that is. That's farmer's lung, where the glyphosate gets sucked into their lungs, causes all kinds of damage within their body, and then the liver is sort of challenged with the responsibility of taking the stuff out. Okay, so when glyphosate comes into the body, I'm going to sort of key on glyphosate in particular. It starts to break down what's called J channels. Okay, and what J channels are is it's the connective tissue between epithelial cells that make up the wall of our digestive tract. You can think of the digestive tract as it's the same as the skin on your body. It's made up of epithelial cells, and they look kind of like Legos, but the Legos have to be connected by something. And they move around in order to allow nutrients to come into the body and get absorbed. And there's a very complex dance between that and your beneficial probiotics, your beneficial flora, which oftentimes get pushed out when there's a lot of damage, which is why people often will come in complaining of SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. If I'm going too fast or you have a question, just jump in. Okay?
Okay.
So glyphosate will come in, it'll pit or create breakages in the tight junctions that are supposed to be keeping the Legos, these epithelial cells, together. Okay? And after it does all that damage in your digestive tract and essentially creates leaky gut, then it travels to the liver and inhibits its ability to break toxins down. There's two phases in the liver for this. So let me back up just a moment. Food comes into the system. It passes through the gut lining. If you have leaky gut, a lot of stuff is passing through that you don't want passing through. Pathogens, partially digested food, all kinds of stuff that your system is not used to seeing. 80% of your immune system is located down in your digestive tract. It will get super inflamed and triggered, which means a big time histamine reaction. And that can lead to things like fibromyalgia and Hashimoto's, which I'll talk about, but I'm going to continue with this path, okay? So over time, this inflammatory process gives way to liver issues. Why? Because 80% of what comes through the digestive tract goes directly into the liver. This is biologically the way it's supposed to operate in case you end up ingesting a poison. It can take care of it before it does damage to the other organs, gets into the liver, and then the liver, through phase one and phase two, breaks it down. Okay, so it starts this, it's called subtraction, that first phase. So it finds this whatever it is. Maybe it's a protein connected to a fat soluble toxin that it can't process properly. It'll break that apart, use the protein, and then the toxin will go into another phase of the liver. And what will happen is if the liver gets overwhelmed by a lot of this stuff, the liver will literally, as a defense mechanism, create a fat cell in order to store these toxins for breakdown later. Unfortunately, later never comes for many of us. And then what ends up happening is you get a fatty liver. Fat literally builds up in the liver that is just a storage mechanism for all these toxins. Oftentimes, your genetics will also deposit these fat storage cells in other parts of the body as well. So you could have a skinny person with fatty liver, you could have an obese person with fatty liver. The size of the person doesn't matter. The genetics sort of define that for us. But this problem is prevalent. As I said, it's over a third of Americans. There's no pain sensors down in the liver, so they don't know what's taking place. Okay. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah, that's great explanation.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we've got leaky gut, we've got the chronic inflammation that results from it, and we have fatty liver. The end result of this typically is an increase in cortisol. Now, why cortisol gets thrown in here at this point is actually makes a lot of sense because the body is recognizing that there's chronic inflammation taking place. And it doesn't want that. It's an aging process. Even though there's a lot of stuff there that it's trying to get rid of or expelling, because it knows there's antigens and invaders, the body doesn't like to be in that state. So it starts to secrete cortisol because the cortisol suppresses the immune system. Okay, so you're suppressing the immune system. That's wonderful. The problem is that cortisol doesn't, because it's a hormone, it doesn't just do one thing. It's got all of these ancillary responsibilities that it's also impacting. So, for instance, cortisol, once it gets secreted, kicks up adrenaline. Okay, so now you have high adrenaline going all the time. You have chronic inflammation, you're going to have cortisol, you're going to have adrenaline. What does adrenaline do? It drops sugar into your bloodstream. So now you have a problem regulating your blood sugar only because you have this chronic inflammatory process. And oh, by the way, you have fatty liver. So the responsible party, which is your liver, for properly regulating blood sugar, well, it's not working so well anymore. So you see why these people have high resting blood sugar in the morning. Okay, so does everybody understand that part of it?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. All right, and I just explained that one. Okay, I'm a slide ahead of myself. My apologies. So when we have increased cortisol secretion and we have increased blood sugar, we and potentially, most likely, we have a breakdown in the digestive tract. The fungus, which is candida, loves sugar. So the more sugar is in the system, the more it will feed and populate. So we are moving the beneficial bacteria out of the system because your digestive tract is literally breaking down. And then we're increasing blood sugar. So this is like the ideal environment for candida and quite honestly parasites as well. All right. Let's get into Hashimoto's fibromyalgia and what we refer to as, well, we used to call it adrenal fatigue, but now we call it HPA axis dysfunction, which is those three glands that control basically your endocrine system. So I'm going to make the case that most people who come in the door with Hashimoto's, and they've either been told they've got Hashimoto's or they know they have a thyroid issue, they'll reach for, say, iodine, or they're on a synthetic right now, and maybe they've never used these products before. You hand it to them, and they're out the door, and they feel great for like a week. And then they crash big time. And there's a reason for that. And I make the case that most Hashimoto's is leaky gut induced Hashimoto's. And why do I say that? So there are three organisms, okay, that typically do not come into the body very often. They're H. pylori, Yersinia, and Epstein-Barr. And on the surface of these things, they look like thyroid tissue. So we have this descriptor in molecular biology called molecular mimicry. And so these organisms are essentially mimicking the thyroid tissue. And so the immune system gets confused. It literally is like, okay, I know these things don't belong here. They look just like, oh, that thyroid thing. And I know how to go after that. And then your immune system jumps up and goes after your thyroid big time. And so that is the confusion. That's called molecular mimicry. And so people are suffering. If they were to try to fix or repair their gut, these problems would actually go away. So, and I don't want to say heal, well, let's just say support the reduction of, okay, for purposes of everything that we do here, right? So, when you end up handing somebody a synthetic or iodine for their thyroid will become stronger. And for that first week, that's great. But the immune system is seeing this and it starts to build up resistance. And so the immune system will suck a huge amount of energy from your body in order to mount an offensive against the thyroid, and it will be successful. And so all of this energy that you're putting into making your thyroid healthier is actually producing a war inside your body. That's why you feel good for about a week and then you are absolutely decimated afterwards. And I talk to a lot of people that go through that exact same cycle. And what we do, instead of making the thyroid healthy, instead of strengthening that out from the get-go, we give them a product that we make called Leaky Gut Repair. And I'll go into the product a little bit later. So that's Hashimoto's. That's the connection to leaky gut. You've got to figure out whether these people have digestive problems. If they have a thyroid problem, they are typically related. The fibromyalgia, yeah, that's an autoimmune issue. So again, the immune system is seeing a whole bunch of stuff it doesn't recognize. It goes into high alert. Lots of histamines are released, and your whole body, especially in joints, will feel pain. It's leaky gut induced joint pain or fibromyalgia. And there is a component here called access dysfunction, where essentially, this is a much longer talk. This is usually like a 2-hour talk. I'm not going to do that to you, obviously. But it does the inflammation and all of these, this pathology that I'm describing, this cascade of biological events, does lead to high blood pressure because it positively impacts homocysteine levels. And that throws off your entire endocrine system. So this is one of the reasons why we have products like Zen Calm and Zen Sleep in here too, to help readjust those things with adaptogenic herbs. Okay, let me jump to the next one. Any questions so far?
Question, and I'm sorry, I don't know your products.
No,
That's
that's
why I'm
okay.
on this.
We'll go through that.
So are you addressing mostly what is happening in the gut that is affecting, the thyroid and the rest of your body? Your products are not messing around, that's a medical term,
Mm-hmm.
with with the thyroid. You're mostly
No.
addressing gut issues.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that
Hold on a minute.
okay? Great.
So yes, I do not. I like the terminology. I am not messing around at all with thyroid. I don't like
Okay.
messing around with hormones just in general, and that includes the Zen
Right.
Sleep product that does not have melatonin in it. So when people come to us, and this is what I've figured out over about 15-year period, is that when people have digestive issues, the first thing they reach for is a probiotic. And I'm not saying that very specific strains of certain probiotics can help or work with certain individuals, but it's a fingerprint. So you're trying to match, oftentimes, strains with very specific imbalances that an individual has. Now, there can be, and I know that there's a lot of discussion at the university level, a couple of strains that work exceedingly well under certain circumstances. But nothing works better than trying to repair the digestive lining such that the probiotics that you take afterwards can actually stick. Because a lot of the deleterious stuff, a lot of the bacteria and the parasites that are hanging around that you don't want, they're there because there's damage there. And because things aren't operating right. Because your immune system is not is able to do its job properly. And once those things are reversed, then things start to come back into balance, if that makes sense. All right. So let's talk about product then. So leaky gut repair is a product that we have. I ended up formulating that after hepatibin, which is a liver cleanse product. So we oftentimes are using the hepatibin, the liver cleanse product, for people who had fatty liver. Okay, and it was very effective. This is clinical trials before and after, and so and half of the ingredients within hepatibin, half of them were actually designated to go and try to help with leaky gut. And then the other half are dedicated to detoxifying the liver. Okay? But the problem was, it did a wonderful job, but 3 or 4 months later, a lot of the physicians were coming back and saying, yeah, the problem has returned because the product itself, hepatibin, was not strong enough in its addressing the gut issues, which has forced us more or less to put leaky gut repair into the line. So you're probably wondering at this point, what is in leaky gut repair? So there's a few things that you must do in order to reverse the damage in your gut once it has taken place. And this is true for E. coli overgrowth, SIBO, people who are suffering from GERD, and then individuals who have diverticulitis and diverticulosis. Those are like our favorite customers because they're the ones that are actually suffering with quite a bit of pain so that they feel the repair and the damage reversal taking place like within 24 to 48 hours. So they feel it right away. But essentially, what's in the product is slippery elm and marshmallow root. That's to coat the digestive tract. So when the tract is damaged, you're not able to make mucus, which is a barrier between you and the lumen of your digestive tract. So we have to put that in there so that barrier comes back into play. We put zinc in there to close large openings. We have glutamine and N-acetylglucosamine as building blocks for both the epithelial cells themselves and the J channels. We have quercetin and bromelain in there to sort of arrest a lot of the histamine autoimmune damage that's taking place. You have to address that piece of it as well. And I think there might be a couple of other ingredients in there as well. That I think MSM is in there and a few others. Licorice root with the deglycerinized form so it doesn't negatively impact blood pressure. All of those ingredients in there have been very effective at reversing a lot of the damage that we see. I will say that we see some of the worst, which oftentimes means even individuals taking our products, they might be sensitive to the products themselves. And those are sort of in extreme cases, but it does happen. And for those people, we typically put them on just a slippery elm tea and a very restrictive diet, and which includes bone broth, and then usually after 5 to 7 days, they have done enough sort of reconstruction in their digestive tract that they can start taking leaky gut repair and really speed that process of repair up. All right, so I just want to take a pause. Any questions at this point? We're good?
So
Do you have any, sorry, do you have any clinical studies behind any of the products?
Well, so we are a physician brand, so we actually
Okay,
work with physicians. That was the plan all along, was to work with physicians first. And although physicians, if they have a protocol that works, even if they find another protocol that works better, they don't like to switch. So it was very
right.
difficult for us to get into that market. So we expanded into health food stores. So the answer is yes, but it's it's not anything that we have put together in official paper, mostly because it's very expensive to do that stuff, and we're not that big. So we're a family-run operation, and yeah, so that's kind of where that's at. Um,
Okay.
as far as okay, so sorry, I just want to pause for a moment. When when we look at the market, and we take a look at products that are designed for digestive health. We look at probiotics. I've just discussed with you, probiotics are not the best thing to do first right away. Oftentimes, people will see a benefit or experience a benefit from taking probiotics for probably a couple of weeks and then not so much. And there's a reason for that. It's because beneficial bacteria will come into the system and they will, for a very temporary period of time, displace a lot of the deleterious organisms, but they also are flowing directly into the body. And the body typically does not, even some of these bacteria are beneficial. The immune system will typically recognize them as antigens and start to mount an attack. So that increases the autoimmune issue. And so you have more damage. That's one of the reasons why a lot of times people will take a probiotic, temporarily feel good, and then not. And so they'll be back in the store looking for another solution. So that's the probiotic piece. And yes, I definitely am a probiotic. I'm a fan of them, but it's the very last step. After we've gone ahead and solved this problem and sort of detoxified the liver, then you can start putting probiotics into the protocol. The other mistake that a lot of products make is that they put ingredients into their products like what we have in leaky gut repair, but they combine them with other ingredients that go after candida and parasites. That's a big problem. I could tell you, because you haven't shut that castle wall down. So when you start to go after candida and parasites, candida in particular, they start throwing off 80, 90 different endo and exotoxins. And that, if it's not contained, goes into the blood circulation and creates all kinds of havoc for both the immune system and the liver. So what you need to do is you need to reverse that damage with the leaky gut repair and then go after it with a separate product. And so the protocols are time specific. So if you have somebody who comes in that has a lot of these problems, leaky gut repair first, and typically, and you can combine it with hepatibin, because almost everybody who has digestive problems has a liver problem, even if they don't know it. And then typically within about, I would say, 4 or 5 days, then you can start to put things in like our Candida complex, okay, which is very effective. It goes after both Candida and parasites, and it has the ingredients in there in the right amounts so that you can take it for long periods of time without damaging the mucosal lining, which most Candida products have a great deal of difficulty with because they rely too heavily on oregano oil and caprylic acid. So, and then there's clove and black walnut and wormwood. And those three, that combination of those three ingredients go after parasites at each stage of their life cycle. So you don't have to wait for the next life cycle necessarily to try and get rid of them. So it's very effective at going after them all at one time. We sometimes throw serrapeptase in there too, and that is a proteolytic and fibrolytic enzyme, and it breaks down biofilm, which is the place where a lot of these guys hang out and hide out from the immune system in the lumen of the digestive tract. But we've noticed that a lot of women love buying the serrapeptase due to the incidence of endometriosis, which affects 10% of women. So it's very good for that. It's very good for scar tissue. We initially put it in the line because we're trying to reduce scar tissue in the liver. Once we go ahead and we alleviate the liver of all of the toxins that are in there, then the liver's ability to regenerate itself is only, the only obstacle there is the scar tissue that remains. So take hepatibin, reduce the toxins in there, take serrapeptase, reduce the scar tissue, the liver can start to regenerate itself. Any questions about that at all?
That's news
We're good?
that you don't usually hear. I've not heard that could repair itself.
So that there's two organs that regenerate fastest. one of them is the brain, the other one is the liver.
Mm.
So, and although I wouldn't repeat this on the floor of a health food store because I know there are a lot of restrictions. When I was over at the Maho show giving this presentation to a rather sizable audience, there were a number of individuals in the audience, store owners, that have been working with our products for a while, and one of them had fatty liver, and his panel looked very good. It's hard to say reverse these things. 'Cause there's so many restrictions on what we can say. But he did mention that he had three customers, and this was a store down in Georgia. I don't want to tell you exactly who they are, but you can look at the video; it's public. And he said that he had three customers who were on the liver transplant list. They went on hepatibin, and then months later they didn't need it.
Wow.
So I'm not going to say that it's going to give you a new liver. That would be very medically irresponsible of me to say. Nor can I even make claims even close to that, quite honestly, because of the FDA. But I will tell you that this is one of the reasons why we're here.
Wow.
So that's that.
Awesome.
Let's see. So the leaky gut repair is in a capsule form or powder, and it doesn't matter to there's more aloe in the powder, obviously, than the capsule, just because of space restrictions. One of the things that we are very proud of is the fact that our products are all clean. We don't have excipients in there that are dangerous. No magnesium stearates, none of the nonsense garbage stuff. We can't be introducing new toxins into a system when we're trying to reduce toxins. We can't be putting ingredients into products that have a negative impact on the immune system. That's just a no-no. Microcrystalline cellulose is another one, and I could go on, but yeah, we don't do any of those things. As I said, we're a physician brand, and we've been highly vetted, and we're available to the stores. And we're not pharmaceutical owned, we're family owned, so we have very high ethical standards and don't get compromised by those things. Let me see if I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again. And there's so many things that I am probably forgetting that are really important. That's what happens when you do it in the afternoon as opposed to the morning. All right. So we talked about this reversing metabolic syndrome and the common mistakes, the probiotics the first, and then trying to reduce the pathogens at the same time, or doing any intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting does not do well with this because these people oftentimes have adrenal fatigue. And so their endocrine system is totally thrown off. They need adaptogenic herbs in order to bring up the mineral and vitamin load and proper hormone balance that is oftentimes negatively impacted when they're in these kinds of metabolic states. Okay? So this is the corrective protocol, and we talked about this in the beginning. So leaky gut repair for repairing the gut. You have to reduce stress if that was one of the drivers. A lot of times people are dealing with stress, so it's not always inflammation. And if it's a reduced stress thing, I'm sure there's products on your shelf right now that you can use, and you know they're very effective. But we do have a product called ZenCalm that is a adaptogenic formulation with magnesium glycinate and the proper balance of B vitamins, B12, obviously in the methylated form. Because a lot of these people, and I will say, not just these people, Americans in general, and probably people just in general around the world, about 30 to 40% of folks have, and I don't know if you're familiar with this gene mutation, the MTHFR gene mutation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay. So educated store, I like that. That's good. So if that's the case, that negatively impacts about 150 different compounds. And one of them, obviously, that's really key is B12. And that's going to negatively impact a whole host of issues, but that's going to throw off your endocrine system tremendously. It'll also kick up your homocysteine levels that we talked about before. So a lot of times these people will have blood pressure issues, and the doctors cannot get it down, and they'll start stacking blood pressure meds, and then they have all kinds of other problems. It's just an absolute mess. So they really need to be testing for the MTHFR gene mutation, and then giving them betaine usually is a good one to try and bring down the homocysteine levels and control that. But obviously, you have to control the inflammation as well. So, the corrective protocol in this case: leaky gut repair, Zen Calm if it's needed, or a Calm product, and then the cleansing of the liver. That's really important. And these ingredients that I am listing here, the milk thistle, NAC, silibin, which is thistle, that's the active in milk thistle, MSM, choline, selenium, ALA, alpha lipoic acid, berberine, and turmeric. That's all in our product, hepatibin. So this is one of the reasons it's so strong. I don't put straight up milk thistle in our product because it oscillates in nature. I get the silibin, so it's I know exactly how much of the active is in there. It's 200 milligrams. Typically, silibin is at about 10%. So if you have 1,000 milligrams of milk thistle, you're lucky if you get 100 milligrams of silibin. That's at its height. So this is equivalent to at least 2,000 milligrams of straight up milk thistle. And then, of course, we have phosphatidylcholine in the product. That's the choline piece that helps to regenerate the silibin. We have the selenium that helps to regenerate, again, the silibin. So that master antioxidant, that key antioxidant, which is glutamine, glutathione within the liver, that is getting replenished many different ways. And then with the cysteine and the sulfur and the choline, that takes care of a lot of the other bottlenecks that you will typically encounter when trying to take fat-soluble toxins to water solubility through the liver. And that's the game. We have these fat cells that get stored up in the liver that are storing toxins, and we have to get them from a fat-soluble state to a water-soluble state so they can run out of the body. You also have to have an AMP kinase in there to kick that up so that you can get after these toxins. AMP kinase breaks down fat cells. So a lot of times people will go on, like we don't market the product as a weight loss product, but that is the end result of this. So people will go on calorically restricted diets or go on a ketogenic diet. They absolutely need to be on a liver cleanse if they do that. So let's say these folks end up losing 10 to 15 pounds in a month, which quite honestly is not very healthy, but that's what a lot of people do. And as soon as they get off of these diets, they get the toxic bump is what I call it, which is you have the fat cells, they're storing toxins, you go into a calorically restrictive phase, so the body is forced to break down the fat for energy, and they elevate the toxins within the body. So that's really bad. So you want to have the liver there to get those toxins out, because otherwise, as soon as the diet ends, the liver's like, okay, I can start making fat cells again to store these toxins because that's a priority. So that's why you get that bump. That's why people lose 10, 15 pounds and then gain back 5 to 10 because it's toxins, stored toxins. All right. If you believe that the individual has a candida overgrowth or other kind of pathogens, C. diff, parasites, so forth, our candida complex will help with that. All the ingredients that you see there, that's in the candida complex. And again, these are highly effective, very strong products, and we avoid putting any deleterious fillers in there as well. And we like to put the serapeptase in there too with this protocol, again, so that we can reduce the number of places these guys can hide. And at that point, you can start with the probiotics. I will say there's one big caveat here. I know there's Lyme disease out where you guys are. If there is anybody who has had Lyme disease in the past, if they take either serapeptase or nattokinase and they are not being actively seen by a physician to reduce their Lyme, excuse me, that can cause a problem. They will have Lyme again, and they will be very angry because I've seen these folks. So, likewise, if somebody is being treated for Lyme, they need to be on serrapeptase or nattokinase. And oftentimes, doctors miss this completely. And so that is something that I would definitely be aware of when they walk in the store and if they mention that. I will say that we get a fair amount of people that have gallbladder issues and gallbladders that are missing. Obviously, if a gallbladder is missing, they need to be on a light base for the rest of their lives. They don't know that. Doctor doesn't tell them that. But most of the time, when they have a gallbladder issue or a sluggish gallbladder, it's a liver issue. That bile is not flowing because it's not detoxifying at the right rate. So the bile doesn't flow, the gallbladder gets sluggish, and what we have found is when we start giving folks hepatibin if they have a sluggish liver, or they're even on pace to have their gallbladder removed in a few months, they get off those lists. They need to be on a liver cleanse. That does help a lot of folks in this category. So that's something that needs to be mentioned. Any other questions? I know I'm flipping through this relatively quickly, but.
So if somebody wants to start the protocol,
Mhm.
do you ever suggest limiting maybe other vitamins that they're taking at the same time?
I don't. I don't think folic acid is the only faux vitamin that I would definitely limit because the body doesn't break it down properly. Um, that's difficult to say. I've never come across an issue that I would recommend to people that they cut back on their vitamin intake. Most of these people are malnourished or undernourished, so yeah, that's not typically an issue that we run into. A lot of times, I'm recommending people take humic or fumic acid as a result because they're just not taking these things in properly anymore.
Okay.
I should mention this. A lot of times when people come in and they have digestive issues and they've been going on for a long period of time, they'll have anxiety or depression. And I don't know if there's probably somebody here in this group that understands that connection, but I'll just let you know what it is. So 80% of the serotonin that is available in our body typically comes from bacteria, and those bacteria are located in our digestive tract. So if we're pushing out those beneficial bacteria that are helping us to make serotonin, that's the happy hormone, the happy hormone's going down greatly, and that will negatively impact your mental health. And so a lot of people will come into a doctor and they'll say, I've got digestive issues, but man, I have got anxiety off the charts. And, then they start saying some things in the doctor's office where a doctor's like, this person's like half crazy. And we're just going to ignore what they say. Don't ignore what they say. They're all, I'm telling you, this is the profile. I've seen it a lot. So we get their digestive tract repaired. Those bacteria come back online. The serotonin goes back up. They can start sleeping better because serotonin is the precursor for melatonin. So again, this is the holistic approach to. I hasten to say healing because I know the FDA hates it, but that's what it is. So that's really important to note. That a lot of times you will have individuals who come in that suffer from depression when there is a digestive issue, and that's the connection. Let me see if there's. I know there was something else that. GERD. Do you have a lot of people that come in with GERD?
I would.
Acid reflux?
Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Are they typically coming in and have been prescribed PPIs?
Some yes, and some
Okay.
are frantically wanting to get off of those because they
Off of them.
are learning
Yeah.
how bad they are.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a specific protocol to get them off.
Oh, cool.
If you don't already have them, you probably have one, but this one works very well.
Yeah.
So a proton pump inhibitor, obviously, so when an individual goes into the doctor and they say, I got acid reflux, the doctor immediately says, we'll neutralize the acid.
Right.
Problem solved. That's the PPI.
Right.
And the issue is actually that their stomach acid is not going low enough, and that is totally antithetical to the way doctors think. And so, there is a sphincter between the stomach and the esophagus called the esophageal sphincter, and it only engages when the pH in the stomach goes below about 3.3 to 3.4. That's when it goes below that, it knows to shut that valve off. Nothing goes back up the esophagus. So, really, what people are suffering from is a neutrality of stomach acid. And the PPI obviously makes it much worse. And so these people go out and they have a high fat, high protein diet, which requires really low pH in order to break that food down. What ends up happening is the food does not get broken down properly. It moves to the small intestine. You end up getting GERD. You start taking a PPI. Maybe you don't feel it quite as much. You're still getting it. It's still going up the esophagus. And now that partially digested food is feeding all of the terrible things that you don't want, like C. diff, like parasites, like candida, like all of the bacteria that causes havoc in high histamine breakout. So they are creating an environment for IBS, leaky gut diverticulitis, all that stuff. Okay, so we understand that. So how do you solve this? Put them on leaky gut repair, because typically what will happen is that stomach is responding to the lack of mucosal lining, so it doesn't want to produce the stomach acid at such low amounts because it will burn out the tissue. If you put our product in slippery elm, marshmallow root, that will help solve that problem. The other issue is once the stomach is not producing stomach acid at a low enough amount, it can't do it on its own. So it has to have betaine HCl added to the formula. So what I typically tell folks is buy some. You don't have to use a ton of it. Follow the suggested use. Take whatever the suggested use is about 5 to 10 minutes before you eat, 3 times, 3 meals a day. Do that for about 4 or 5 days in a row. And what your stomach does is it recycles the acid. So that's all it needs in order to restart those pumps properly, and the pH will start dropping and getting into that proper range again. But you got to be taking a product like leaky gut repair, or you could do slippery elm tea or something like that, because that mucosal lining has to be in there too, because otherwise you do a lot of damage. So that combination, that protocol works effectively, very well. So
So how much betaine again? It was
suggested use, whatever it is.
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
For
oftentimes it's like just 2 pills or whatever. I don't know. It's a 500 milligrams of betaine HCl. I'm not quite sure what's typically on a bottle.
okay. But you said 3 meals a day for how long?
Typically, it doesn't even need to go a whole week. I'd say 4 or 5 days, and people are sort of right-sided at that point.
Wow.
Yep. But again, this doesn't mean so these individuals, they still could have scaly, ulcerated skin in their esophagus. So it may not necessarily mean that the pain is going to go away right away. And this is what they have to understand. But the damage that is being caused is going to go away, and they're plumbing. The rest of their plumbing is getting corrected. So, you know, they may come to you after 5 days and be like, "Look, I still feel pain. This is maybe not working." You just have to tell them you got to trust the process. Your body it took you a long time to get here. It's going to take you a little bit of time to get out. So, and that's true for all of our products. People who have fatty liver and they start taking hepatidin at full dose, like 4 capsules at night, you got to be taking that for about 3 months.
Okay.
It's not a magic pill. It's not going to work overnight. It's not pharmaceutical.
That was my other
So
question. So you think 3 to 4 months to see?
that's typical.
Okay.
That is, yeah. And when we talk to the physicians, that's typically what they're putting the patients on. And a lot of times, they'll have, of course, the physicians are dealing with some people who are really bad, like, they're going to get their colons cut out.
Yeah.
So they're extreme cases. And for some of those people, 6 to 8 months is not unusual. The nice thing about our products is that they're non-toxic. I don't make anything that is not water soluble and doesn't run out if it goes to really high levels.
Okay.
I mean, even the Candida complex, we make it at the right ratio so that you can use that for an extended period of time without burning out the digestive tract. So,
I have a question on the
on the liver cleanse, I
Yeah.
see it, at least it seems like a lot of customers come in and have a diagnosis from their doctor. I have fatty liver.
Mhm.
I've been told I have fatty liver. I don't really, my
Yep.
experience has not, and I've not been there as long as all the other ladies on this call, but my experience has not been, I've had a diagnosis of leaky gut. Do you just automatically assume if you've got a fatty liver, you should go ahead and do this digestive repair along with, the liver cleanse?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
It's
Right.
it's very
Okay.
rare. And again, when I talk to people, they'll say, "No, I don't have a digestive problem." Okay, all right, that no problem. You just take the Hepatibin. And they'll typically come back and they'll say, "Okay, a few months later, okay, I have some digestive issue. Can you help me?" So they may
Okay.
not know it in the moment, but yeah. And this is one of the reasons why we have Digest Harmony in the line too, because there are occasions where people have a lot of digestive discomfort, and this is the very rare occasion, and I'm saying like less than 5% of folks that don't respond to the leaky gut repair. Those people typically need digestive enzymes on top of it. And so
Okay.
the combination of leaky gut repair and the digestive enzymes, that is like that's the trip. And then all of a sudden the reversal of damage starts taking place.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
yeah. And that demographic is usually over 35. It typically does not happen for folks under 35. But over 35, yeah. So, good questions. Good questions. Um, Anything else? Did I cover everything?
I think so. When you were talking about the MTHFR mutation,
Mm.
and if you have high blood pressure numbers and doctors can't figure out why, what was it you said? Was it the betaine? HCl?
Uh, yeah. TMG, betaine. Yep. Anything to help control it's the homocysteine levels. So any ingredient out there that backs down homocysteine is what you want. That's the problem. That's the problem hormone.
Okay.
And it's because it cannot be properly broken down because there's a methylation process that's obviously inhibited by the gene mutation.
Okay.
So homocysteine goes up and goes up and goes up. So,
Okay.
and that took a little bit of time for me to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what the percentage of doctors are that actually understand this connection. I would say like 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you being able to understand this and possibly being able to communicate this to the patient, the customer, it's rare. So,
Mm-hmm.
kudos to you.
We,
I had to walk away for a second and take a call, but sorry if somebody already asked this.
Yeah.
The whole world is on the GPL-1 or whatever, those Ozempic and
Oh,
stuff.
God, yes.
So
Gee
how
whiz.
because these are such herbal formulas and herbs do seem to react in some people, is this, I mean, so many of those people need something like this because
Yeah.
they're just really
Yeah, they're messed up.
making a mess. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They're messing with it.
Yes,
That
right,
better.
right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
is your question whether,
I mean, it's okay to take these products with
yeah,
because
it's a good question.
especially their livers and
Yeah,
gallbladders. I mean, they're all having their gallbladders removed, and
yeah,
it's a mess.
yeah. And again, like, so let me back up for a second. Yeah, GLP-1 agonists, I hate them. They're awful. They're creating so much of a mess. And I did a couple of podcasts on this, and I'll tell you what, the pharmaceutical industry just absolutely shadow bans the heck out of it. They do not want this information getting out,
mm-hmm.
but that stuff is so unbelievably destructive. Unbelievable. I mean, there are cases of people losing their eyesight
Right.
from taking GLP-1s. So, and of course, they completely decimate the digestive tract. And there have been people who have lost parts of their digestive tract as a direct result, in my opinion, of taking GLP-1s. Are there contraindications? It doesn't seem we've had people who are taking leaky gut repair and GLP-1. It doesn't seem to have any problem. I don't, from a biochemical standpoint, I don't believe there would be one. That doesn't mean that there won't be one, or you won't have an individual that doesn't react well to it. But I haven't seen it so far, so that's good. Anybody who, again, has a gallbladder issue, put them on hepatibin, and I'm telling you, I that will clear that up. The like we have a product called Sugar Balance. It's well formulated. I formulated it myself. I don't like using it because it's a band-aid. I only put it in there because insulin is so toxic. And so the physicians were like, well, we have to use insulin until we get the liver back online. So, but we don't want to use this one because it's so toxic. So make something for us. That's the only reason that's in there. I hate using it. And I typically, if somebody is buying it consistently online, I will reach out to them and I'll say, look, stop using it. It's a band-aid. What you need to do is you need to address liver health because that's the organ that's regulating everything. So if you see somebody coming in and they're going right for a sugar balance type product, try and point them to a liver cleanse product.
Okay.
So just food for thought. And I guess the other part of this is, we have a product called Zen. So we have ZenCom and we have Zen Sleep, which is basically 24-hour relief of that HPA axis dysfunction. I know people call it adrenal fatigue. I'm not interested in re-educating the consumer, but there's no hormones in it, no melatonin. I don't believe in that. I think that's very bad. If there is anything that anybody who's participating in this call would like out of the line, I'm more than happy to make a product available to each of you for participation. So just let me know what that looks like, and
Okay.
we'll send that out to you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, no problem. But
And
yeah,
are your, because you're sold online,
yeah,
do you have a MAP policy, or if I'm going in,
yeah.
am I selling it at a lower, higher price? What?
Yeah. I think it's important to talk about the business side of things. The biggest complaint that I get from store owners and staff on the floor is, yeah, I'll sell your product, but then they come in here and they'll jump on their phones and they'll find it cheaper somewhere else. That's going to be pretty hard to do with us because we do not go through distributors. We go direct. And as a result, we're able to do 50% on the wholesale side, just across the line. So there's no like jumping through hoops and really ridiculous calculus that you need to do to figure out what the discounts are and all that garbage that other brands play. I just feel like it's really important for us to be transparent. The online price guarantee that we have is pretty solid. If I find anybody who is discounting the price online and I put that in the contract, I will just pull the product from them. So it's going to be really hard to find this product or anything in our line for less than what you are selling it on the floor. So I don't know if I've answered that question appropriately.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to protect you guys because you guys protected me years ago, and I'm not going to go back on my word there. So we're on Amazon, we're on Walmart. That is to protect you guys because what was happening was there was counterfeit products showing up on those platforms. So I had to be there to register with them so that I could kick them off. So
Mm.
that's where that is. Anything else? Well, you've asked some really good questions. I hope I've done a good job at disseminating the information. Been very patient with me. I know it's an afternoon and it's towards the end of the day.